Chodesh Sivan, or the first Rosh Chodesh Sivan that we left Egypt. And on that day, we find that the Jewish people are told that they encamped around the Sinai mountain. It's like one nation with one heart. And part of the whole process of being able to get to Shavuot is to work on something that perhaps doesn't really exist so much in the Jewish world. And maybe now with COVID, that's changing a little bit. And that is unity amongst people and unity amongst different factions within the Jewish people. And therefore, what we're doing here tonight is really indicative of that very, very special moment that took place 3,332 years ago to this very day, where all the local communities are getting together to be able to aspire and to share their knowledge and you spend their time with different people to be able to prepare them for the upcoming Shavuot, where sadly we won't be in our shuls yet. It's highly unlikely that that will be the case. So I want to thank all the rabbis that are collaborating here today. This should be hopefully the first of many more collaborations with Rebbitzins next time and different participants, but it's great to get everyone together, and we appreciate you coming out at this time and spending time at home an hour with us. So we really want to thank you for that. We thought it was appropriate that at this time, with so many people still sick, that we share three Tehillim, 3 moments of prayer with the people that are joining us tonight. And rather than just say the words, the 2 rabbis, Rabbi Ket, Rabbi Hoch, and Rabbi Goldgrab, who are going to be sharing these ideas, will be actually giving insights into those various words of King David. So without further ado, whoever's hosting this now, Rabbi Nick or Rabbi Chanan, will pass on to the next Rav. Thank you.
Go. Let's go, Rabbi.
Hello, everyone. So this is Kapitel, Psalm 121, Kuf Chaf Aleph. Shir Lamalos, Eseinai El Harim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'madinai, Oisei Shemayim Ba'aretz, Ali Tein Lamait Raglecha, Al Yonum Shemrecha, Hinei Lo Yonum V'lo Yishon, Shomer Yisrael, Adonai Shemrecha, Adonai Tzilcha Yad Yaminecha, Yemam Hashemesh Lo Yakeka, V'yoreach B'loila, Adonai Yishmarcha Mikol Ra, Yishmar Es Nafshecha, Adonai Yishmar Tzescha Vayecha, Me'ata V'yad Olam. Just to share a quick thought. In the first verse of this psalm, it says, Shir L'malais, a song of ascents, Ese Einai El Harim. I lift my eyes to the mountains, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. From where will my help, where my salvation come? Now, my ayin could mean from where, but on the other hand, my ayin could also mean ayin, nothing. In Hebrew, ayin means nothing. And when we lift our eyes to the mountains and we look up and we say, please God, please Hashem, send us salvation, send us help in these difficult times, we know that may ayin yovo ezri. Our help will come out of nowhere. It will come from nothing. It will come keheref ayin, in the blink of an eye. Wishing everybody a happy and healthy and safe week and a wonderful Shavuos.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's my privilege to lead us in chapter 130, Kuf Lamed. The words Mi'amakim Krasicha Hashem. From the depths, we call out to Hashem, even when the going gets tough. Even when we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, Hashem is there to listen to us. Hashem is there to hear us. We say the words, Nafshi la Hashem mishomrim laboker, shomrim laboker. That my soul waits for the Lord more than the watchmen wait for the morning. People who are on guard throughout the night, waiting for the darkness to end, and they yearn and they pray and they cannot wait for those rays of sunshine, the start of a new day, the start of greatness and glory. And in the same way, these words, we echo those sentiments, and we certainly pray for the light at the end of all of this, and a return to some semblance of normality and of health for everyone in our community and beyond. Shir hamalos mimamakim krasicha Adonai. Adonai shema b'koli tihiyena oznecha kashivos l'kol tachanunai. Im avonos tishmoyach Adonai miyamod. Ki imcha haslicha l'man tivarei. Kivisi Adonai, kivusa nafshi, velidvaro chalti. Nafshi l'Adonai, mishomerim laboker, shomerim laboker. Yachel Yisrael el Adonai, ki im Adonai hachesed, v'habei mofedus. V'hu yiftes Yisrael, mikol avonosav.
Good evening, everyone, and what a privilege to be a part of this. And thank you so much to all the rabbis for organizing it. And the chapter of Tehillim that I'm reading is chapter 20. Chapter 20 is a very famous chapter, perhaps the most famous chapter of Tehillim. Most of us will know it from the davening, but less famous is the fact that the Leviim used to sing this in the Beis Hamikdash, when the kings brought their karbanos. For us, the meaning of this chapter of Tehillim is mostly and importantly the prayer that we say when we want to ask for refuah shalema for someone. It's particularly important now at this time for us to think about all those people who are suffering and going through a difficult time with health, but also in many other ways. This chapter of Tehillim really has all of the answers for us. Chapter 20. Lam Natseach, Mizmor LeDavid, Yancha Adonai b'yom tzara, Yisagevcha Shem leHeYakov, Yishlach Ezrecha mikodesh, Umitzion Yisadeka, Yiskar kol min chaysecha, Vaylos chaydash nesela, Yiten lecha chilvavecha, V'chal atzoscha yemalei, Niranen abishuasecha, V'shem Eloheinu nidgoil, Yimale Adonai kol mishaloi secha. Ato yodati ki Yoshi Adonai Mashiach Yaneu Mishmei Kodshay Bigvuroi Seisha Yiminoi Eila Varecha Veila Vasusim Vanachnu B'Shem Adonai Leheinu Naskir Heimo Koru V'Nafolu Vanachnu Kamnu V'Nizoidad Adonai Yoshi Amelech Yaneinu V'Yom Koreinu. Wishing everyone a wonderful, wonderful Yom Tov.
Okay, Shkoyach, Reb Chaim. I'm going to attempt to spotlight myself. I believe I'm spotlighted. If not, then okay. Just want to double check. This is really quite exceptional that we're having this amazing experience together. I, on behalf of one little bit of Herts in Bushy, really cannot thank Rabbi Rafi Garson and all of my chaverim, all of my colleagues, as well as all the communities together that have made this evening possible. Really, Yashikayach, the platform of the Hertsmer communities and Rabbanim, rabbis with hearts, would be the way that we're describing ourselves. Should only go from strength to strength in challenging times, but also in wonderful times as well. I want to share something which is extremely close to my own personal heart. And the reason why it is because this is actually the first piece of Torah, the first of our Torah I ever shared as on my rabbinic journey. And believe it or not, it was shared in Bournemouth and Elstree Synagogue a decade ago. Shavuos, 10 years ago, when I came as a little United Synagogue intern into the Hertsmer communities and was welcomed with open arms and really was the gateway to everything that happened. So this is 10 years ago in the making, and something I wanted to share now as well. Yesterday, we read from the Torah. We couldn't read from the Torah, read from a Chumash for our communities. It said, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe b'midbar Sinai. And Hashem spoke to Moshe b'midbar Sinai in the Sinai desert. Asks our commentaries, Since when does the Torah go out of its way to teach us the geographical, topographical location from which Hashem emanated his voice and spoke to Moshe? Why did we need to know it was in the Midbar Sinai, in the desert of Sinai? Why is that relevant? From the Ohel Moed, from the tent of meeting, perhaps, from the Aron HaEdut, from the covenant between the parts of the Keruvim from the Holy Ark, perhaps there it makes sense, but why the desert? The Midrash, therefore, comes in to enlighten us why it had to be B'midbar Sinai in the desert of Sinai. Says the Midrash, Lama B'midbar Sinai, why in the desert of Sinai? Mikan, from here we see, Shanu Chachamim, our rabbis teach us, B'shlosha Dvarim Nitna HaTorah. The Torah is given through three things. There are three prerequisites that need to be present for the Torah to be given. What are those three? Ba'esh, through fire, b'mayim, through water, b'midbar, and through desert. In order for us to receive the Torah, there has to be fire present, there has to be water present, and there has to be desert present as well. We have an insight from Rameir Shapiro, the author, the creator of Daf Yomi, who shares with us what does it mean through fire, through water, through midbar. He said that for Torah to be given, it has to be given through a sense of sacrifice. The first sacrifice that we had as a people came from Avram Avinu, came from Abraham, who was willing to be thrown into the Kibshan Ha'ish, through the furnace of fire, out of his allegiance and loyalty and faith in God. But it wasn't enough simply that our forefather alone had the sacrifice and the capacity to give of himself in order to come close to the Almighty, but we as a people needed it as well. And therefore came the water, came the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, in which Nachshon ben Aminadav led us into the sea with faith in Hashem. As a people, we were willing to sacrifice to go into the water for God. And finally, Midbar. Midbar, into the desert. Lechtech acharai b'midbar, that we as a people are willing to leave Egypt not knowing where we would go, but we knew that Hashem was with us, and we were willing to sacrifice in our beliefs in God and to go into that desert to know that we would be looked after. And these are really beautiful insights into what it means, fire, water, and desert. But it doesn't answer the question of why does Torah need to be given through sacrifice? Why in the world would Hashem want us to only be deserving of his Torah? If it hurts us,
I'm going to have to go on again.
if it hurts us, if it costs us, how could that possibly be a requirement? How could that be possibly necessary? But yet it seems to be a prerequisite. After all, does it not say in the 6th parak of Pirkei Avot, which we read yesterday, Kachi darka shel Torah, is this not the way of the Torah, pas b'melach tochal, that we must eat bread with salt, u'mayim b'meshura tishta, and only to have a bit of water, ba'aretz tishan, and then to lie on the ground, the darka shel Torah, the kanyane shel Torah, the ways of Torah, v'chayit tzar tichya, and to live a life of pain, u'batorah, and then you will have Torah, Ashrach v'tov lach, will be good for you. How could it possibly be such an important prerequisite? I heard once a parable to help illustrate and to understand what it's about. There was once a king running for his life, being chased. Some type of revolution was taking place. The rebels were on his heels, and he was charging through the woods looking for a place of shelter, and found a peasant's cottage in the middle of the woods, and he ran into the cottage and said, hide me, they're after me. I will reward you endlessly, just save me. The peasant is shocked. He sees the king, looks around, it's just a bare room, barely a bed in the corner, a cot to sleep on. He says to the king, quickly, under there. The king dives under the bed. A few moments later, the rebels charge in and say, where's the king? Where's the king? And the peasant says, I don't know what you're talking about. King? What king? The guards look around the room, there's nowhere really to hide, but then they see the cot, they see the bed, they see the straw mattress, and one of them takes his sword out and he slams it straight into the center of the bed, because if the king was there, it would pierce the king. But of course, the king had pushed himself all the way into the corner, so that the sword came this close to his nose, but just missed him. They pull out the sword, no king, they run out, the rebellion is squashed, the king is back on his throne, and he turns to the peasant and says, I'll give you any reward that you could possibly want. You name it, you have it. All you need to do is mention what you'd like, and it will be yours. And the peasant turns around and says, you know, I have a great life. I have 4 walls. I have a roof that doesn't leak. I have a comfortable bed, albeit with a small hole in it now. There's not much that I possibly need. I just had one question. If you could just answer that one question, I'll be purely satisfied. It'll be all that I need. The king said, listen, I said I'll give you anything you want. You can get whatever you want. And the peasant turns to the king and says, what did it feel like to have a sword this close to your nose? The king turns beet red and says to the peasant, this is how you treat me in my moment of shame? Put him in shackles, off with his head, take him to my palace. The peasant's crying, screaming, I'm sorry, I just was curious. You asked anything, but the king's not listening. The next day, the guillotine is set up. The peasant is thrust in front of the crowds. He's crying. The king is shaking his head. The peasant's head goes down onto the bottom of the guillotine, rested there. And the king said, 3, 2. The peasant screaming, 1. The guillotine goes down. And the last moment, the king screams, stop. And just above the peasant's nose, the blade rests. And the king says, that's what it felt like. You see, apparently some things you can't appreciate until you experience them. And we think of sacrifice in terms of having to give and to be punished and to lose. But all that Hashem wants is us to be willing to give of ourselves and to experience something that until we taste it, we can't possibly appreciate it. We had to go through the midbar, we had to go through the desert to throw ourselves in because we could be caught by Hashem. And when we're caught by Hashem, there's no greater feeling. There's no more wonderful experience. The Mishnah teaches us, be willing to push it all aside and to step into Yiddishkeit, because there's nothing more amazing. And all of us who are here on this wonderful Achdus thing this evening, but all people who are connected to our wonderful faith, can we always express into words what it gives us, what it makes us feel like, whether we're in shul or in our home or wherever we're together in all of our experiences. When we experience it, we know. I want to say Yasher Kayach and thank everyone for taking part.
I guess I'm up. Thank you, Rabbi Feldman. Superb. Friends, thanks so much for being here tonight, and thanks all my mates in the rabbinate for getting this together. It's a tremendous feeling to be part of this, and shkoyach, amazing. So Jaime Frankel, you know, he owned Nescafe, and he manages to arrange a meeting with the Pope at the Vatican, and after receiving the papal blessing, the Nescafe's owner, Jaime, says, Your Eminence, we have an offer for you. Nescafe is prepared to donate $100 million to the church if you change the Lord's Prayer from give us this day our daily bread to give us this day our daily coffee. So the Pope responds, That is impossible. Is that a good enough Italian accent? This is impossible. The prayer is the word of the Lord. It cannot be changed. So Jaime says, we anticipated your reluctance, Your Eminence. For this reason, we're going to increase our offer to $300 million. $300 million if you change the Lord's Prayer from give us this day our daily bread to give us this day our daily coffee. My son, it is impossible, says the Pope. The prayer is the word of the Lord. I cannot change. So he says, Your Holiness, we at Nescafe respect your faith, but we make one final offer. $500 million. That's $500 million to the great Catholic Church if you would change the Lord's Prayer from give us this day our daily bread to give us this day our daily coffee. The next day, the Pope convenes the College of Cardinals and he announces to them, colleagues, there is some good news and some bad news. The good news is the church will come into $500 million. And what is the bad news, Your Holiness? Asked one of the cardinals. The bad news is we're losing the Hovis bread account. Now, from Hovis to matzah, at the beginning of a lockdown, the first battle most of us had was how to handle Pesach. We picked ourselves up, we dusted ourselves down, and we arrived somehow at Seder night. We held aloft the matzahs. I don't know what you had, but there's rakuzans. Rakuzans are square, but the original shape of the matzahs wasn't square. The Torah tells us that the actual shape was ugois matzos, round matzahs. So why were they round, and what has it got to teach us? There's an ancient custom to point to the matzahs, and the Chassam Sofer, an 18th century Hungary sage, he said, Soviv Rishoyim Yisalechu, which is a quote from Tehillim, from Psalms, which says that Rishoyim, wicked people, go round and round and round. And I thought of myself as this wicked person this year, as I looked at my round matzah. Because sometimes in life I go round and round and round. Working to eat, eating to work, the circle of life and the cycle of life. A lot of people work 50 weeks so they can have 2 weeks break. And life goes on and years go by and the pattern begins. In Bereshis, in Genesis, there's a midrash that tells us that Hashem gave the trees a commandment, that the bark of the tree should taste like the fruit. Eitz oiseh pri liminehu, a tree producing a fruit like its type. And the trees rebelled, whatever that means, that's for another time. The trees rebelled, and if you taste bark today, it doesn't taste like the fruit. What was the sin? And what does it mean to us in Herts in 2020 in lockdown? I think one of the messages is this. You see, when you can taste the fruit in your life, in the bark, it means that you can taste the tachlis of your life, the purpose of your life, in the here and now. That we're not just working 50 weeks a year to have 2 weeks holiday, but you can feel on holiday every day of your life if you are truly free. You can taste the fruit in the here and now. That was the message to the trees. This is the greatest source of confusion in our generation. We can't be here now. I sometimes go places, not in lockdown, but before, whether it be a football match or a concert, people taking photos at the event on their iPhones instead of actually watching the performance. Watching the match. How about being there? You see, we don't see the meaning in the here and now. We can't taste the fruit in the here and now. We're on our pattern. We're on our cycle through life where the same thing goes round and round, and we don't realize the magic of being here in the moment, that we can taste the fruit now, that we can taste the purpose of our lives in the here and now. Sometimes we're just absent. Jean-Henri Fabre, the French sociologist, told us about processionary caterpillars, that he put some caterpillars round the edge of a pot and they would just go round and round and round, following the one in front, mindlessly, until they all died of exhaustion and starvation, even though in the pot the scientists put their favorite food. They ignored the food and carried on following round and round and round endlessly in a cycle, going nowhere and dying. And I look at my life sometimes, maybe some of you can identify with me. The same cycle, end up doing the same things, the habits, the bad habits. What am I living for? Where's my destination? Or am I working to get money so I can have a holiday? And I'm on holiday so that I can have enough energy to get back to work. In Mitzrayim, in Egypt, the jobs that the Jews were given were a joke. One story tells us that they had to push they had to push these pedals that operated an underground mill. And after years of working on it to make flour for Pharaoh and his soldiers, they were showed that beneath the ground there was nothing there. They were taunted with an act of futility. Their servitude was underpinned by complete meaninglessness. They couldn't taste the fruit in their life because it was meaningless. That was what it was to be a slave. That's what we remembered at the beginning of lockdown when we went to our Seder table and we held aloft the matzah. Because when we come out and we journey for 49 days, 7 complete cycles, and we get to Shavuos, we get to the Yom Tov that's coming up on Thursday night, we remember what we did to that matzah, that round cyclical matzah. You take the middle one and you smash it into smithereens. It's called yachatz, breaking the middle matzah. At the Seder, we learn we have to smash the cycle. We have to pattern break. We shattered the circle. And when we left Egypt on our way to Mount Sinai, every moment of life could become meaningful. We could taste the fruit in the here and now. And when we shattered that matzah, when we shattered the cycle of life, we were spiritually free and connected to an infinite source. So when we broke the matzah in lockdown at the beginning of this weird and zany and terrifying period of time, we now have the lesson to learn ourselves. This breakdown in society, this lockdown in our mentality, is it going to knock us out of our patterns? Is it going to shake us up? Is it going to smash into smithereens the cyclical habits of our all too often cyclical and lazy ways? Set yourself free, says the Torah. When we can break the endless cycle, we are free. We now started counting after Pesach 7 weeks, which is 7 cycles of 7, 49 days. And the 50th day breaks the cycle. It's 1 day above the cycle. Shavuos happens on the 50th day after Pesach, from when we start counting the Sphira, the counting of the Omer. Because when you get to Mount Sinai, when you're able to see meaning in your life, when you can see that every minute of every day is an opportunity given to us by God to be Jewish, to do good, to be good, then we can feel there's nothing missing. You know, conflict management with couples, therapists tell their couples to focus not on the content of their argument, but on the pattern of their conflict. And if you go against the grain and do the opposite, you can get out of a rut in a relationship. Get off the merry-go-round, says the Torah. Be free. Come out of your Mitzrayim. Come out of your Egypt. Smash the middle matzah. Smash the patterns of life. We can do it. We can change and we can be great. And we're reminded of this every year. So if you, like me, are in cycles, cycles to do with relationships, cycles to do with how we live and how we think and how we behave, we have to be ready when we get to Shavuos and we stand before Mount Sinai again, ready to receive the Torah. Receiving the Torah means to be ready to act abnormally, to be free of our habitual behavior patterns. I was told recently of an 82-year-old man who never went to yeshiva. He just made a siyum hashas. He just completed the cycle of the Talmud 7 years later at the age of 89. It's never too late to break the cycle of your life. I'll leave you with a story. I've taken up too much of your time already. There was a Jew who was in an American high school, a religious high school with a rabbi, and he left Judaism and became a Hell's Angel. You know what a Hell's Angel is? With a full leather garb, on his Harley Davidson or his motorbike, piercings, and he got his tattoos. Years later, he turns up at a simcha and he sees his old rabbi from high school. And he says, Rabbi, I've got to show you something. You're going to be happy. He says, Moshe, I haven't seen you in years. It's interesting what you've become. He says, yeah, Rabbi, but you'll be proud of me. I went to the tattoo parlor and I got tattoos on my legs. He showed him. I got tattoos all over my chest, right? I got tattoos all over the tops of my arms. He says, I told the tattoo artist to leave one space without a tattoo. Here, where I put my tefillin. I couldn't let them tattoo that place. Rabbi, you'll be proud of me. And the rabbi was moved that he remembered that he gave him a pair of tefillin in high school. And that boy never forgot about it. And when he had all his tattoos and he left everything behind, there was one precious, sacred place on his body that he left for the tefillin. The tattoos were the pattern all over his body, the patterns and cycles we get into. He broke the pattern. There was a space left in his heart for the tefillin. And that space is waiting for us on Thursday night as we receive the Torah again with Kabbalah SaTorah at Shavuos, where it's the time where we can break the pattern, remember the breaking of the middle matzah on Seder night, and travel from servitude and slavery into true spiritual freedom. And that is the blessing we can all get excited about. Thank you so much.
Wow, Rabbi Hughes, thank you so much for that. Such a powerful, powerful words there for us, and also to Rabbi Feldman as well, and to all my rabbinic colleagues. I want to thank you all for arranging this and everyone agreeing to do this. It's a fantastic display of achdus, of unity. Here in Hertfordshire, we're blessed to have wonderful, wonderful rabbinic colleagues, and we all get on so well. And this is, as I said, one of the fantastic opportunities. In fact, he's got one of many. You know, there's only two opportunities in history where we've seen true achdus. First, you know, it's Har Sinai, Sham Yisrael Neged, how the Jewish people camped, like one person with one heart. There was one other opportunity, and that was in the times of Mordechai and Esther, when faced with existential threat. Esther says to Mordechai, "Konos es kol hayudim," go and gather together all of the Jewish people, and the rest we know is history. Purim, as Chazal tell us, is one festival that will never, never stop being celebrated because of that beautiful aspect of achdus, and that's something we're really very fortunate to have here in Hertfordshire. You know, they say that it's always dangerous when you're speaking after other people have already spoken. I'm fortunate there's others coming after me, but already having after two other fantastic speakers. You know, the danger is everything's been said, but not everyone has yet has an opportunity to say it. So I hope to be able to find something different to share with you in the time that I have. I want to share with you a beautiful story I saw in the Sefer called Yeno Shel Torah. The story is a true story, and I want to share this with you because I think it's such a wonderful story. As Rabbi Hughes spoke about so beautifully about Pesach, I also want to take us back to Pesach, because this story once happened on second night Pesach. After counting the Omer, the Gaon Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Halevi Horovitz, the Av-based Din of Georgia, in Ukraine, and father of two holy brothers who would go on to be great leaders in their right, Rabbi Shmelka, from whom the Nikolsburg Hasidic dynasty and the Boston Hasidic dynasty descended, and Rabbi Pinchas, the Haflam. And on that Seder night, their father turned to them when they were still young boys, and he asked them, which Masechta, which tractate of Gemara do we now need to learn? And the older boy answered, we now need to start learning Masechet Shavuos, in order that we can complete it on Erev Shavuos. Now his father was very surprised, and he asked him, my dear child, do you know that Masechet Shavuos doesn't deal with the subject of Shavuos? The child answers, no, I know. The Masechet Shavuos deals with the matter of oaths and true and false oaths. But it's specifically for this reason that I think it's perfect to learn it now. Because since the first Shavuos, Zaman Matan Torah, from the time when we were given the Torah, we all took a Shavuah. We all took an oath at Har Sinai to keep the Torah. And by learning Masechet Shavuos, we'll know how important an oath is and how careful we have to be to fulfill it. And the boy continued and added something absolutely remarkable. He said there are 49 days between Pesach and Shavuos. And Masechet Shavuos is completed in 49 dafim, 49 pages. And we said if we can study one page per day with Hashem's help, we will complete it on Erev Shavuos. Now it's interesting to note that the Torah Barakes of Pre-Shavuot, a Kabbalistic commentary on the laws of Orach Chaim by Rabbi Chaim HaKohen, a disciple of Rabbi Chaim Vital, teaches us that in fact we shouldn't pronounce the festival of Shavuos with a comment under the shin, Shavuos, but as Shavuos, with a Shava under the shin. So that it should read as the plural of the word Shavua, meaning an oath. And he explains, because Shavuos is the festival of Shnei Shavuos, 2 oaths. The first one is the one that Hashem made to us, that he would never exchange us, the Jewish people, for any other nation, however wayward we become. And the other oath is the one that we made to Hashem, that we would never exchange him for another God. That's what we should remind ourselves on Shavuos, of those 2 oaths, the one that God made to us, and the one that we made to God. Now the story continues, because the following year, Rav Tzvi Hersh Alevi Horowitz asked Rav Pinchas, and he says to him the very same question. He said to him, tell me, what Maseches should we begin to learn this year ahead of Shavuos? And the boy answered, I think now we should learn 2 Maseches, Kesubos and Kiddushin. And his father asked him, and what relevance do these have to Shavuos, the festival? The child explained, since Hashem sanctified the Jewish people with Chuppah and Kiddushin, on Shavuos, as it says in Hosea, Va'arastich la'olam, I will betroth you to me forever. And he held the mountain over Har Gigis like a chuppah. And the kesubah he gave us, that's the Torah. And he sanctified us and made us holy with his mitzvah. And therefore it's appropriate before Shavuos to learn these Masechetes in order to know that the Kiddushin that we had 3,000 years ago is still valid to this very day. And both sides still need to fulfill the conditions of the Kesubah that was given 3,000 years ago to this very day. What a beautiful, beautiful idea. And just a footnote to that boy, Rav Tzvi Hersh, the son of Pinchas, went on to be known as the Haflah, a commentary he wrote on Maseches Kesubos. So a beautiful idea, and perhaps we should institute this Hashem next year. We should learn these between Pesach and Shavuos. But for now, we have our own minhag. The minhag to learn Pirkei Avos, ethics of the fathers, every week between Pesach and Shavuos. Chazal had a brilliant idea when they thought of this. Because we know that Torah tells us, because the Chazal tell us, Derech Eretz Kodem Torah, that being a decent human being precedes the Torah. The very first requisite, the first thing we have to do in order to be able to be the receptacles for Torah is to be decent human beings. But I want to look at very quickly in the last 2 minutes that we have. The first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that tells us, Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, that Moses received the Torah from Sinai, and the very last Mishnah in the 5th chapter of Pirkei Avos, where we're told to turn over the Torah and turn it over because everything's in it. And there's no greater characteristic trait than the Torah itself. The commentaries ask, what do these 2 Mishnahs have to do with the theme of Pirkei Avos, which we know is a work of Musa, of character development, and Midas, and working in our trades? Why would those be the 2 Mishnahs that start and end Pirkei Avos, and therefore set the whole tone of that work of Mishnayos? And I share with you very quickly the beautiful answer given by the Nesiva Shalom, the Solomon Rebbe. He tells us, the very reason why God gave us the Torah is in order that we're able to live up to our mission in life as Jews. Because the only way we're able to survive in this world as Jews is through the Torah, through the Koach HaTorah, through the power and the gift of the Torah. As we say, Hashem chose us to be his people and gave us his Torah. So the whole world is a test for us. There are many midas rars, there are many negative characteristics, there are many different difficult situations we find ourselves in, challenges to who we are as human beings, as decent people, and as Jews. And the only way that we're able to stand up to them is through that Koach HaTorah. It's through the strength, the connection that we have with Torah. That is what we are mechadesh. That is what we renew every Shavuot. Throughout the rest of the year, it may become rough in biyadenu, it may become weak in our hands. We may, as Rabbi Hugh said so beautifully, become so caught up in the cycle of life, in the trappings of everything that goes day with day-to-day life, that we find it very difficult to strengthen ourselves in Torah and give ourselves the ability to overcome those things that we struggle with most. And therefore, once a year, on Shavuos, we remind ourselves of that beautiful oath that we took to God and God took to us. We remind ourselves of how the fact that there are 49 days that we've prepared from Pesach to Shavuos, to remind ourselves of those oaths and to remind us that we owe it to God, we do it to ourselves. To live the lessons that we learn throughout these weeks between Pesach and Shavuos that we find in Big Hours. To develop ourselves as human beings, to become the best people we can be, the best Jews we can be. And that will be the ultimate, the Kabbalah Torah that we receive once again on Shavuos. I wish you all a Chag Sameach.
Can you please be quiet? Daddy's on.
Thank you, Rabbi Chapper. You know, the rabbis of Herts, we're not just friends. I would say that we are yedidim. We are beloved brothers. And it's a very special setup that we'd be able to rely on each other and spend so much time, if necessary, with each other in different places of the world as well. And I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight and for being here. I want to share with you tonight, perhaps in the next 10 minutes, something that comes from a rather unusual source. And it's a very strange story, but it's a very powerful and profound story. You know, during the reign of Alexander I and Tsar Nikolai in Russia, in the early 1800s, the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, suffered for 56 years. What was happening at that time, very briefly, was that Jewish children were literally being kidnapped from their parents, sometimes as young as 5 or 6 years old. They were conscripted into the institutions of Tsarist Russia with the simple intention that the conditions that they were being placed in would force them to adopt Christianity. They were, historian tells us, conditions of brutality, of pain, of suffering and torture. And the whole point of this was that they would forget their youth, they would forget their education, they would forget their religion. And discipline was maintained very strictly. Sometimes there was threat of starvation. There was even corporal punishment. At the age of 18, these pupils were then drafted into regular army units. They had to serve for 25 years. And by then they were brainwashed, forgetting everything they'd been taught as young kids about God and Torah. And the Tsar's God was supposed to become their God, so to speak. And we're told that out of the thousands that were taken away, very few held steadfast to their beliefs and they refused to be swayed or influenced in any way. Even merciless beatings couldn't break them. And we told as well that the Russian authorities used to send forged letters home to their parents saying that their children had converted to Christianity, and they received angry letters back from their parents saying, when you leave the army, you have no place in our villages, you have no place in our home. When at the age of 43, they finally finished their service, they had nowhere to turn. These former soldiers were searching for acceptance, but settled for one thing, and that was loneliness. With no family and very few memories, they scrambled to do whatever they could in their Judaism. So we're told that happened once in the middle of the 1800s. A man by the name of Rav Yidel, who was a Socher Shaba Chassid, spent time with his Rebbe, who was known as the Avner Nezer, a man that was born in Benzin. Some of you have been there with us, Rav Avram Bornstein. And he had traveled to the Ukraine on business. He wanted to get back to Poland in time to spend Shavuot with the Holy Rabbi. But instead he got delayed. He found himself spending Shavuot in a very unlikely village. It was known as one of the Cantonist villages that these Cantonist soldiers had set up. And he settled down for this uninspiring Shavuot. And after Yom Tov, he made his way straight to see his rabbi. And he entered his chamber and he lamented, I'm sorry I couldn't spend Shavuot with you. So he asked him, do these Cantonists have a rabbi? Do they have a Rav? And he said, yeah, actually they do have one. He's the one that remembers the most before he was kidnapped. He said, well, what did he say on Shavuot? He said, well, on the first night of Shavuot, he got up and this is what he said. He said, the Talmud tells us, as Rabbi Chapper just mentioned in passing, that when the Jewish people stood at Sinai, Kafar alehem har kigigis, Hashem took the mountain and placed it over them like a barrel. And then he turned to them and he charged them and he said, Immatem mikablim mutav. If you accept the Torah, then everything's going to be great. V'im lav, but if not, Sham tekvotchem. There will be your burial place. I will drop this mountain on you. I will crush you. And then everybody asked the question, where's the commitment then? That happened later on at Purim. But this Cantonist rabbi got up and he says, why does it say in the Talmud, there your burial place will be? It should say, po tekvotchem. Here you will be buried. He said something so profound. He says Hashem wasn't speaking to Moshe, he wasn't speaking to Aaron, he wasn't even speaking to the Jewish people that were standing at the foot of the mountain. They had already said, we will do and we will hear. That was from the bottom of their souls. The word Sham there was a nevuah, was a prophecy. That for the Jews at some time in history that find themselves on the outskirts, on the periphery of the Jewish world. And God was telling us, is this what he said to the Cantonists? That if you don't hold on to Torah, if you don't accept it, we'll be buried there. Meaning, there's no way to survive the world without it as a Jew. Kihem chayenu, it's the key to our lives. And at that moment, the Russian soldiers gathered together, began to sing and dance with tears flowing down their faces. They had no families, they had no wives, they had no children, but they had the Torah and they had each other. And Rabbi Bornstein turns to a student and he said, you want to spend Yom Tov with me? You know, throughout the ages, there have been many individuals who have overcome crazy odds of being sham, of being there, simply by embracing some form of Torah and its ideals. And even today in 2020, many Jews find themselves in situations of sham. No fault of their own, maybe because of their upbringing or their environment. There's a whole plethora of reasons. But we're being taught over here that connecting to Torah is what binds us and what gives us, hopefully, hope. There's an idea I heard which I conclude in the next 3-4 minutes. There's a popular word that we know called morasha. Morasha means a heritage. It appears twice in the Torah. Once is the verse that we teach our kids as soon as they're little. Torah sivalan Moshe morasha kilat Yaakov. The Torah is an inheritance of Jacob. The second time is when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, where the Torah says, "Venatati otan lachem morasha ani Hashem." Hashem says, I will give you the Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, as an inheritance. It's the same word, two different meanings. Morasha, inheritance of Torah, and inheritance of Israel. Rav Frankel, who was the father-in-law of the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Lau, says, if you look at this Morasha, the Torah, it's a very interesting thing. Every Jew for the last 3,000 years, almost every Jew has some connection to it. Some more, some less, some more far, some more near. Some keep all the commandments, some study more, some do kindness, some do charity, some pray more, some say Shema, some maybe just put on the tefillin, they'll have a space in between the tattoos for the tefillin. Some maybe keep the rabbinic mitzvot. Some may only keep matzah once a year, or even only come to shul once a year, Yom Kippur. But they have some belonging to Torah. The second Morasha of Israel, if you look at our history of our homeland, the majority of the Jewish people didn't get this inheritance. Millions of Jews have never even touched the ground of Eretz Yisrael. In 1267, when Nachmanides Ramban flees Spain because of his life, he gets to Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem, there's barely 10 Jews. So Rav Frankel says, what's the difference? How can you have two heritages given to the same generation that left Egypt? One everybody has a part of, and one only has a small minority. His answer is very poignant. He says, it depends how you get a gift. What's your reaction? When we received the inheritance of Torah, the other nations said, yeah, it's not for me. What did we say? We'll take it. We don't have to look at it. Na'aseh v'nishma. Even before we know what it contains, we promise to keep it all. Says the Almighty, that is how you react to my gift. Then every Jew in every generation will have a belonging to Torah, even if those people are Sham, even if they're on the outskirts. But when Morasha of Eretz Yisrael came, when the Jewish people were offered the land of Israel, there was confusion. We have to send spies. We have to check it out. Will we be successful? Moshe says, wait a second. You just experienced 10 plagues. You saw the splitting of the sea. We fought Amalek and won, and now you want to check it out? That's how you react to a present from the Almighty? Says Rav Frankel, maybe that's why the Almighty says, you reject my present? You ask, is it worth it? Maybe you won't have a connection for a while. This Shavuot, we reflect on the simple but most deepest and precious and profound ideas. And I think this year in lockdown, more than ever before. What an opportunity to reflect on the only thing that makes us into a nation and avoids us really being sham under that mountain is Torat Israel. We all received it, and on Thursday night we recommit to those ideals and to live by it. We embrace the gift 3,000 years ago and have an opportunity this year once again to connect to that gift in a more deep and meaningful way. So this year, When we're by ourselves at home and we have time to reflect, it's time more than ever before to step up and connect in an even more deeply and more incredible way to this special gift that gives us life, it gives us meaning, and gives us purpose. Chag Sameach.
Hey, thank you so much. Just here. Okay, I've got the job to finish off together the whole evening tonight, and just to reflect, it's been such a pleasure to share this time with you. And as Rabbonim, we don't often get to hear other Rabbonim. So actually, we've had this opportunity to actually hear our colleagues and how we speak, and it's been amazing how the passion and the enthusiasm, as Rabbi Elchanan said at the beginning, the hearts that we have here in Hertfordshire. And please God, this will be the first of many more that we'll do together. My job maybe to tie things together. My theme for the next 9 minutes, I've got myself on my clock here, is going to be, there we go, I've started it now. My theme is going to be living life with purpose on our journey to Shavuot. Let me start off by telling you something. When I was a little kid, I used to watch this program called Sesame Street, which I'm sure many of you have watched before. And it was both educational and it was entertaining. And one of the games they used to play was they used to split the screen up into 4 parts, a bit like watching a Zoom share. And so you'd have 4 things and you have to guess which one is doing its own thing. So you'd have an apple, a banana, an orange, and an elephant. And they'll sing the song, which one is doing its own thing. And you have to work it out. And obviously in this case, it was an elephant. But let me pose to you 4 things and you have to work out which one is doing its own thing. So here we go. Are you ready? So we got a day, a week, a month, and a year. Now we've only got a few minutes, and I'm going to go straight to the answer. The answer is, it is a week. Why is that? The week is different because all the other things are based on physical phenomena. We got a day, which is 24 hours. We got a month, which is the moon, and we have the year, which is the earth going around the sun. But the week, well, we know from our faith and our religion, our practice, our way of life, that is based on Hashem creating the world in 6 days and resting on the 7th. Now, amazing, one of our greatest philosophers, the Kuzari, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, 11th century, he points this out, so that the Jewish people, as we know, have been the smallest of people. We are currently about 0.2% of the world's population, yet somehow or other, through history, we have influenced the whole world to keep a 7-day week. And the Kuzari says, if you think about it, a 7-day week in the secular terms, let's forget about God for a moment, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If we want a period of time between a day and a month, then we need something which we can base it on. So let's have like a 5-day week, or use our fingers to make a 10-day week. The 7-day week doesn't make any sense, but to us it does. And how we have influenced the world, and this is the message I want to give to you tonight: the power of process and destination. And that is the message of how we keep the week, and how the week is infused throughout the world. Now let's turn to another great Torah scholar, and we're going to move to the 17th century in Krakow, Rabbi Yonason Eibeshitz. He was not only a great rabbi, but he was a tremendous mathematician, and he points out something very special about the number 7. So what is special about the number 7? So if you take all the numbers in the decimal system between 1 and to 10, they all have a relationship with each other except the number 7. Let's have a go. So number 1 has a relationship with 2. Number 2 has a relationship with 4. 3 goes into 6 and to 9. And number 5 goes into 10. What about number 7? Poor number 7 is all by itself, but it isn't. It's number 7 is the godly number. What is number 7? It is part of the system, but separate from it. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. Hashem is part of the system. He is the system, but somehow he's separate from it. Number 7 is Hashem's imprint in this world. And as we know, and as the speaker spoke before, we are in this period of 7 times 7. We are marking this time for going through a period of time and we are marching through a very few days away now from Shavuot. So I want to ask a couple of questions, and we'll leave you with a message on how we count the Omer. So the first question I want to ask you is, why is it that, and it's often asked question, why is it that we are counting upwards? Usually when we're excited about something, we count down. Let's say it's somebody's birthday, so it's 4 days to go, 3, 2, 1. Or let's say, God forbid, somebody's in prison. Yeah, we've got 1 month to go, then 3 weeks, etc., etc. We are looking forward to that time. So why in Judaism are we counting up? Because the truth is, in Judaism, and what Torah teaches us, is we appreciate every single moment, every day of our life. And that is what the counting of the Omer is teaching up. We build up. We're in a process of growth. In the secular world, when they want to count down time, what are they really saying? They're saying, I'm here, and the destination is here, and I don't want this time at all. I want it to go away. I want to be there already. When their New Year arrives, they go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That means they don't machshiv. They don't think that this time's important. But for us, it's very different. Every moment of life, every day is so precious. There was a wonderful poem, which many of you know, but just to repeat it again, it says that yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. The Jew uses the present time, and we use every opportunity for growth, and that is what we are in at the moment. So that's the first question on the Omer of why we're counting upwards. The next question is, we know in Halacha, we have to count both days and weeks. The verse tells us both the days, 50 days, and we have to count 7 lots of 7. And the question is, why is it that we have, when we count the days, we count at the beginning of the day, but when we for the week, we only count the week when we get to the end of the week. So, for example, we say there's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and then once you get to day 7, then we said, and that's been 1 week. And the answer is, as we said at the very beginning, because this number 7 and this process that we are going through in our life, not just on our period, on our journey up to Shavuot, is teaching us about process and destination. We have a process in the world. We have to work hard, and life is often difficult, as we're finding now under COVID-19 and other difficulties that we have gone through personally or nationally or internationally. Life is difficult, but we have to work hard. And we know that we have a destination. Our life is to work hard physically, emotionally, spiritually on ourselves, but we have a destination, and that is Shavuot. And that is our spirituality, our connection to 7, which is our destination. Now, we've got a couple of minutes, just 2 more questions, actually 1 more question to ask. And that is, when we have a choice, because in the Torah it tells us we have to count the days and the weeks. So therefore, our final destination could have 2 names. Either it could be called Shavuot, which means weeks, or we could call our destination Yamim. Yamim means days. So what do we call it? We actually call our destination Shavuot. We don't call it Yamim, days. Interesting to note, the Christians have a similar festival based on our Shavuot, and they call it Pentecost. Pentecost is just days, 50 days. But we call it Shavuot because we have got the message that life is process and destination. So throughout the Omer, we are counting our days, and we're turning our days into weeks. Weeks means purpose and destination. And just to finish off with this, maybe to sum it all up, that we have been inspired tonight. You've staying with us for the journey. Well done, everybody. And I think one of the greatest miracles is that each rabbi has been able to keep under 10 minutes. Mazel tov the rabbis. So if only we could do this in shul, I'm sure everybody's saying. But we've all gone through this process. It's been interesting to know that the depth of COVID-19 really started around Pesach time, and now it's started to be easing up at Shavuot time. We've all been through this process, the whole world. We're trying to find asked to slow down and to think that we have process, but we also have purpose as well. May Hashem bless us to come together many more times in our learning for other projects. I know we're thinking about the 3 weeks ahead of us and the Tisha B'Av to work together. But in the meantime, let's get ourselves ready and let's take this inspiration onto Shavuot, and we should all bless with good healing physically and spiritually. And we should all a Chag Sameach and Shavuot and Shavuot Tov and Chodesh Tov. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Garber. Thank you very much, Rabbi Chapper, Rabbi Hughes, Rabbi Garson, Rabbi Ket, Rabbi Hoch, and with all of our Rabbanim. I know I'm forgetting someone, and Rabbi Goldgrab for the amazing joint session that we're sharing. As Rabbi Garber said, we're looking forward to having 2.0 coming along, rabbis and Rebbitzins with Herts coming up as we move forward towards the 3 weeks, but also a massive appreciation and yashikach to all who have tuned in for this evening to share with us. What fantastic Vayichan Sham Neged Ahar, Ki Ish Echad B'Lev Echad, to have all of us together across the communities as one people, as one community, as one heart. And I really hope that all of us can continue with that sense of achdus together. I certainly will, and looking forward to us together, although in many ways individually enjoying Chag HaShavuot as we go into it towards the end of the week. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the evening and all the best. And good night to everyone.
Good night.